Okay, guys. So as I was saying that, so guys, what happened is somehow when that thing froze, I think the recording also stopped, and I just started the recording now while we are with. We have installed the full E6i1 here. We have installed the full E6i2 here. We're configuring E6i1. We have already configured first static IP. Then we talked about the DNS. We gave a name here, E6i01, your first name, E6i01. I'm going to show you all the spots here in the video because the video just started now. And we make sure the gateway is there. Now we're talking about DNS suffix here, right? So this much we have done in the video. Guys, I'm going to share with you the video of the previous course where I exactly did the same step because I just realized that the video just started now. Okay.
Amir, just have a question. So how come the hypervisor catches the DNS? Although, like, they both on the same network card, but they are not member of the domain.
Exactly. So that's exactly what I'm about to explain now. Yay! So this is a very good question. And so the reason for this is just a simple domain name, right? Your first name, humber.local. Suppose you have Toronto branch here, Tor, and you have New York branch here, NY, and maybe you have London branch, maybe you have Vancouver branch or something, right? So what happens is, suppose you have Hypervisor 1, Hypervisor 2 here, and then you have Hypervisor 3, Hypervisor 4 here, and these hypervisors, so they belong to Toronto, obviously, and these belong to New York, right? So you need to put a naming convention whenever there's a naming convention given to the devices smartly, intelligently, then half of your troubleshooting is done there, because first of all you need to locate the device where the troubleshooting is going on or where the problem is, and we need to reach that device. So if the naming is perfect, you would actually reach the device right away, or you want to just know some information about the device and where it is located. So suppose you created a domain name here, Tor, so tor dot humber dot local, right? And there you created ny dot humber dot local. Now any device that you created in this network, according to the DNS rules, if you want to have a record of any of the device, suppose there's a print server, there is a web server, but now there are hypervisor 2 and 3 here, H2, H3 here, and hypervisor 1 and 2 here, right? And then there are print server, web servers, SQL servers here as well. Everything else is there just like in a typical network. So what happens is that if you have a proper domain name there, so this hypervisor 1 or hypervisor 2 and 3, okay, sorry, 3 and 4 here, right? So you will name it like this, H3, hypervisor 3 dot ny and dot, humber dot local, your domain name, right? And there hypervisor 1 dot, so their full domain name will tell you right away, oh, okay, there's a virtual machine on hypervisor 2, and that hypervisor 2 is giving issues. So I need to locate where's the hypervisor 2. Oh, what's the full name? Hypervisor 2 dot Toronto dot Humber. Okay, this hypervisor is in actually the Toronto branch. Okay, I get it. So I'm going to connect to the Toronto branch and then connect to the correct hypervisor, and then simply. So if the domain naming convention is good, you can locate a device easily by just reading the name in a very big environment or big environments there, right? So that's why they're saying that, hey, suffixes, the last part of the domain, the ending part of the domain. So it will be the server, whatever the device name is, plus the domain name. So that's why they say, hey, you want to attach this hypervisor to a proper domain name in DNS or not? Yes, we're about to do that. We will do that in production environment. You have to do that. Just intelligent naming convention is always going to be very helpful for you to manage the network, and especially when you want to locate the device, the naming convention just gives you right away where the device is located across the planet. Suppose you have a lot of branches across the world. So this is why suffixes are there. Ours is just one branch based, or just one small network, so that's why the domain name is like that. But bigger networks, they always make sure that hypervisors are also connected to some kind of domain, either Microsoft or any other. So that's the reason there's a suffix that we're going to accept, that yes, we're going to use Microsoft suffix, domain suffix, or domain ending part with VMware machines as well. So hopefully we understand that. It's just that when you have worked on production environments in companies with big networks, so you would realize that yes, we really need to make sure that the naming is good. Otherwise, locating a machine, okay, machine number 1 or server 1 FS, file server 1. Okay, where is it located in 10 branches? No idea. Okay, then you ask around and see. Otherwise, give intelligent naming conventions, right? Okay, so I'm gonna click on that and press enter. We don't need to change anything. If anyone doesn't have that name, please put it exactly like that. Otherwise, it's press enter, although we didn't change anything. So this is the discussion for the configuration. We should know why we're doing that, and then what we're doing is the second most important. But first is why. So custom DNS suffix is good. If I just go up a little, DNS configuration on the right side, just keep checking. The name is okay. The IP already was okay. Okay, done. IPv6, we didn't do anything. If you go up arrow, IPv4, is it 3? That's the only change we made, right? If all that is okay, which is just few configurations we did. Okay, this one says don't understand very well the aim of domain name here. Oh. Okay, very well. Okay, so yeah, what I explained here was that if you have proper domain names, then you will be able to easily locate the device. So if your first hypervisor is in Toronto and second hypervisor is in London, actually I'm just going to repeat the whole thing again, same thing. Hopefully you understand this time. Toronto and New York here, you have one hypervisor here, right? H1 and H2, hypervisor 1. This is E6i hypervisor, just like this and this, right? So if this hypervisor is attached to a domain name, then if the domain name is properly given, our name is just for one small network. So there you don't really need to change it. But if you have bigger branches, so VMware is normally installed where you have many, bigger companies have VMware. VMware is an expensive solution. So normally bigger companies have that more. So if they're big companies, then they would have branches across Toronto or New York or London or Tokyo or Beijing, right? So wherever they have those branches, they need to locate the devices by name, right? So if they're in New York, so the domain name we're gonna put there, not here, there as ny dot your domain name, whatever the company domain name is, right? Suppose it was Humber, so ny.humber.local, right? So when you put ny, so before that, obviously, suppose this device is in New York, so the device name always comes first. You remember that what is FQDN, fully qualified domain name? Fully qualified domain name is device name plus domain name. So fully qualified domain name, according to that rule, you will have H2 or hypervisor 2 dot the domain name here. So that will, in the monitoring software or overall when you're doing inventory, you will know that hypervisor 2 belongs to New York, because in the domain name you've attached this hypervisor device name to the domain name in DNS. We're about to do that, so then you will know that how to do this. But why are we doing that? When you have proper domain naming there, you can track a device properly. This is in New York. For Toronto device, suppose it's hypervisor 1 here, hypervisor 1 dot tor dot humber dot local. So when in monitoring software or when you're doing management, basically, so at that time you will see that, oh, hypervisor 1 is in Toronto. So you would not have to guess where the hypervisor is. Suppose I remove the name Toronto, h1.humber.local, while you have 5 branches or 6 branches or 10 branches or 2 branches. So if you put meaningful name to the branches and then attach them to the hypervisor names as well, so you would know that hypervisor 2 is in NY because its fully qualified domain name is ny.humber.local, and it is in Toronto because its fully qualified domain name is h1.door.humber. So we did not do that. We don't have to do that. Our environment is small, so don't compare with our environment here. So this is for big environments that you properly give names. So attaching a suffix to a hypervisor name is always a very good idea. That's why VMware gave this option here, right? To attach a domain name to a hypervisor. So you could also locate it or give it some meaningful name there. Hopefully that is clear. So let's go ahead. Yay. Okay, so where's that? You're welcome. And where's that configuration? Okay, guys. So we were on this configuration, and I'll press enter here. So guys, here, if you have done all the configuration, you know what needs to be very carefully done now. We need to finally save it. So hopefully nobody went outside of this window, because if you press escape now, that is okay. You need to press escape once only here to save all the configurations that you did till now. You need to press escape only once to save all the configurations you did till now. So I'm just going to press escape only once here, and it's going to show me this: apply changes and restart management network, right? So we all know what to press here. It is yes, or press Y on the keyboard to save all the changes. I'm going to press Y here, and all the changes are saved, right? So hopefully everyone got it. We need to pretty much do the same configurations on the second hypervisor as well. So let's do this. And I'm on the second hypervisor now. And here, I'll just click on top of this screen. How to go inside? We all know F2. So in my case, Fn plus F2, right? And then so there's the root login name, which we don't need to change. Just click down arrow and put the whole password that you put during the wizard, installation wizard, right? Enter. So all we need to do is just give a name E6502 and change the password to IP to 4. So I'm going to go down here as well. This is the only area that we configured. Configure management network. And I see there's a DHCP given IP. I need to remove that, just like in the first one. So I'm going to press enter here, right? And network adapters is a physical adapter. We don't need to do anything here. I'm going to go down. We do not need to configure VLAN here. That separates the machine communication. And if I go further down, yes, the IPv4 configuration, just like we did before. I'll just mute all. Okay, so IPv4 configuration, I'm going to press enter. And this is the same configuration that we saw before as well. I'm going to go down arrow. This is not what we want, the dynamic configuration. I'm going to go down arrow further. And in order to select it, we use the spacebar key. And then once you select it with the spacebar key, then down arrow again. And then I'll click just right arrow. The cursor doesn't show there, but it's there. And just remove 1 and 5. This time we're putting the IP address as 4 because that's the next available IP in the range. Okay, so if that is all done, in order to save it, we press enter. In order to save it, we press enter. Ready? Enter. Okay, then we go down. IPv6 we're not changing, so just like what we did before. Down again, DNS configuration. Obviously the 200.1 on the right side is okay, but the host name is not okay. These guys are not okay. So I'm just going to press enter. And I'm going to go to this guy, or this guy. Okay, I'm going for Italiano. Okay, so your first name ESXI2. Guys, very important thing here. After doing all this, we're going to go to server 1. We're going to open DNS console. We're going to create A records. Maybe some of you know that already. What is A record? A record is just a machine name and IP, right? So when you're putting machine name and IP here, there in DNS, it has to be exactly the same spellings here, exactly the same IP of the hypervisor, which is here. You need to put there as well. Make sure the spellings exactly match what you just write here. That's what I'm saying. When we go to DNS and create the same A records manually, the spellings must be exactly the same. So suppose there is ESXI here and there you put EXSI by mistake, obviously. So then you won't be able to connect by name to this hypervisor. Okay, so is A record case sensitive? No, A record is not case sensitive. So okay guys, here I'm just gonna press O and K and press enter to save the information. So I'm pressing enter to save as the information. Okay, then we go down. And custom DNS, we're just double checking. We don't need to change anything here. We just had a discussion on that, but we didn't change anything here, right? So nothing to do here. I'm gonna go double check the above configuration. It's okay on the right side. Your first name, it's excited. Yep.
Amir, sorry for interruption. Did we change anything in the network adapters? I'm just a little behind.
Network adapters. Nope. Then we went for IPv4. Here we just changed, 50 to 4. That's all.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, this is Iltisha. For custom DNS suffixes, for my case, the automatic hotmail not coming. So in that case,
change that to your domain name, just like you did in ESXi1.
Change the domain name means which I just use the domain name. So manually I change the domain name. Am I right?
Yeah, your Windows domain that you created, whatever domain name is there. Yeah, your name Humber. If you followed exactly what I did, then your first name Humber.local should be there. Or please do check the name spellings of the name of the domain you put there. It has to be exactly that. Yep. Okay, so here, well, I'm just gonna press enter. So everything seems to be okay here. DNS is okay on the right side. IPv6, we're not configuring that. IPv4, it's okay. That's it. So we're gonna save this whole configuration. In order to save all this configuration, you just have to press escape once. In order to save all this configuration, you have to press escape once. And then it shows this window. Apply changes and restart management network. So obviously, we're gonna press Y on the keyboard to press yes. So I'm gonna press Y on the keyboard. Y. Oh, okay. So if we check out our diagram here, we were able to configure the two hypervisors here, and then what we're gonna do is we're going to go ahead and now we're gonna go to the DNS, this guy, in server 1. We're going to create A records for both machines. So A record is always created, I hope we all know, in FLZ, forward lookup zone, right? And it's pointer record or IP and name. So A record is name and IP configuration. and then it results computed into IP addresses, and the RLZ has, or reverse lookup zone has, PTR records for both, pointer records, which are IP and name. So if anyone has an IP and wants to know the name, the request will go to reverse lookup zone. If anyone has the name and wants to know the IP, the request will go to forward lookup zone in DNS. So let's go there and just correctly type the spelling of the machine and correctly type the IP of the machine, right? Okay, so I'm just going to go back to the lab here. Since I don't need all this to be showing, so I'm just going to click cancel on this to make the screen bigger. Whenever I need that back, I'll just click this, right, and click this. Okay, so what we need to do is I'm going to go to server 1. Let's go to server 1. In the server 1, as we discussed, we're going to go to DNS. So I'm just going to make my screen bigger. So we're in the server 1 in the server manager. In the server 1 server manager page, I'm going to go to the top right here, and this is called tools. So I'm going to click tools here. In the tools, I'm going to go down to DNS, right? And then we're going to go for your first name, server 1, and then forward lookup zone. So DNS, your first name. So there's a forward lookup zone, there's a reverse lookup zone. We just discussed about that. So expand the forward lookup zone, and you see your domain name here, because all the machines in your network will be attached to this domain name. Well, machines in your Microsoft network. But we're going to now relate at least our non-Microsoft machines, the two hypervisors, to this ending domain name as well. So how do we create an A record manually? Either you can right click here on this white area here, or same thing, you can right click on top of this domain. It's the same exact thing, right? So I'm right clicking on the top of this domain and go for new host A record. AA is for IPv6. A record is for, yeah. So Ramanjot says repeat. So repeat from where? Close this. So hopefully you're in server 1, Ramanjot. Guys, everyone, server 1 must stay powered on throughout the course, throughout the class actually.
In like the machine 1, we have to log in through the admin like account, or from the other user.
See this? I hover your first name admin. Right?
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, and so I'm in the first machine here, and I'm gonna go for tools, and then I'm gonna go down to DNS, right? Okay, and then again expand the forward lookup zone like Aziz, and right click on your first name, or first select it, left click, first select it to see on the right side what's there already. Then right click on this, and there's a new host A record, right? So good. Okay. So once you click the new host A record, now your correct name and correct IP really counts. So the name is your first name ESXI1, right? And you can see that it already populated that with fully qualified domain name, the name of the machine, and the domain name, which is okay. I'm going to go to the IP address, and the correct IP address has to be there, 192.168.200.3, right? Okay, I'll just mute the mic. Okay, so your first name. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. For checking the name, because I forget, I keep the Ehtisham hyphen EXI1 or Ehtisham EXI1. So how can I check the name?
Check or change?
check what I put over there.
You need to go to click F2 and then go inside and check the name.
Okay.
Right. So you know how to do that, right? F2. So F2 here. Small is equal to shift 1 to 3 without shift 1 to 3, and then inside you go here to configure management network, enter, and the name is in this DNS configuration. And once you enter, so this is the name that you can change here. Okay, so let us go ahead. I hope I'm able to do the whole lab, because guys, it's not very compulsory to have the whole lab done with me, but yes, those who do that, you don't have to go through it all week, but also that I have to cover the whole topics. But any quick questions, please do let me know. Yeah. Okay, so once you're on this page, I'm just gonna click this, create associated pointer record as well. So create associated pointer record. So if you've clicked this, you've put 200.3, you've put your first name ESXi1, then we're good. Make sure that the name is exactly the same as you put back there in Hypervisor. Otherwise, by name you won't be able to access, but by IP you will still be able to access, which is also okay if the name was wrong. And in a production environment we have to make sure that naming is okay. Here you can connect by IP as well if you want. Okay, so let's click add host. I'm going to click add host, and it says the host record blah 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 was successfully created. Okay, that's good. And I'm going to press ONK, but the screen is back again. Hey, do you have another A record? Actually we do. So that's the second hypervisor, and I'm gonna put your first name. Yep.
Sorry.
Yep.
Yep. So the new host, add new host in the DNS manager. It should be as same as name in the hypervisor, right? Is
exactly. Yes. Whatever you put there should be here as well. Suppose you put
so
here
it's
any wrong name.
how to check it? I'm kind of forgot how to check this. HTTP://
No, don't remotely connect to the hypervisor yet. You can go to the UI here. If you press enter here, I pressed enter, escape. If I press escape, on DCUI the name is showing there already, what you put. So just check the spellings there.
Escape.
Yeah, I pressed escape, it's still not accepting that. Yeah, see this? So your name is showing here already. So if you want to check that what was the name, yeah, this is the name spelling. But don't put in, when you're creating DNS, don't put HTTP and : // just the name only in DNS, as I'm putting there.
Okay.
So whatever the spellings on DCUI, just put that. So if I go to my DCUI, this is called DCUI, right? Direct Console User Interface. So here I can see that the name of the second hypervisor is this, your first name ESXi2. Okay, this much I will put in DNS as a name. So,
okay, I got it. Yeah.
Cool. Okay.
And there is a fully qualified domain name is showing as kind of weird. What is yours?
See this? It's okay. Whatever the domain name there, plus the whatever name you put here, that's the fully qualified domain name.
Okay, thank you. Got it.
Okay, and 192.168.200.4, right? So I hope nobody made a mistake here, and just cross-check your name spellings, and it's not case sensitive. It is not case sensitive. Okay, so your first name is ESXi2 and 200.4. If that, and make sure that it's not 194 and it is not 169, right? So, and create associated pointer record, select that. If your screen exactly look like this one, then you're good, and click add host. Right? Yay! Add hoses. Done. And press OK. And done. All right. So once this,
you are doing you added two of the XI on the same on the server one. Is that correct?
yes. And this is the first one. This is the second one. See this on my screen?
Okay, yeah. Can you just give us a minute to do this? I'm not boarding.
Okay. Yes, Ramanjot, it is 200.4. So now this screenshot, actually, yeah, let's take a screenshot here. Yay! Because now you can see the two Windows machines having their IPs and two hypervisors having their IPs. So that's the most critical configuration, one of the most critical configurations here. If this is good, by name you can access those sources. If this is not good, you can't access them by name, but you can still access them by IP, the hypervisors. We're about to do that, but let's take a screenshot number 3, which is the DNS configuration. So screenshot number 3 is this, where obviously your name is showing. I'm going to give a sample screenshot. Your screenshot should be exactly looking like that. And the title. So I'm just going to put that there in WhatsApp. Screenshot 3 equals and the DNS configuration. All right, it is pasted there. Okay guys, so this is the sample screenshot that you can all see in WhatsApp. And reverse zones are okay. Yes, reverse zones automatically get updated with this. We just need to create that record in forward lookup zone. And once you have taken that screenshot, you can go to the server name and refresh it just a few million times. So click that server name and refresh it just a few million times. So now, well, we were able to reach here. So let's take a break, and then we're gonna remotely connect to the hypervisor. We're gonna just discuss the roles there in hypervisor, and then we need to install the vCenter as well. So guys, what will happen is before the break, I would want to make sure that everyone or every two has actually everyone. If I go back to the Blackboard here, you can see here download for 2 VMware files. So you know that file that I already opened? Do we all have the second one as well? VMware VIM all 6.0. Now that is a 2 GB file, right? If you have it already, don't come here, right? If you don't have it, go ahead and click the download button. Yes, I'll be helping you after the class. So yeah, we'll be yeah guys, let's take a break, but go ahead and download. Those who don't have it, only those, go ahead and click that in Blackboard and download this one, VIM. This is vCenter for Windows, right? Windows based vCenter, right? All right, so this one you need to download. Hopefully we're all doing that, and until then there's a break. So I will annotate that, I guess. Break. Wow, that's a cool way, right? And class starts. Oh, what happened? Uh, 807. So it is 817, 820 or 825. Okay, since you all insist. So 8:25, 17-18 minutes. Okay.
So on, you want to know how is VM?
And yeah. So what we can do here, so what's the plan here? First of all, yeah, we have created 2 A records here, and now we need to actually remotely connect to the Hypervisor 1 just to see how to connect to Hypervisor 1, right? So the main point here is that from a browser, Google Chrome specifically, preferably, we will try to connect to the first hypervisor. That's the way to connect to 1000 hypervisors as well. So let's open the browser in server 1, and then we're going to type there https:// so there's a colon is this // and then the name. What is the name? Your first name, ESXi, exactly what you just wrote there, ESXi1. So https:// your first name is ESXi1. If you put that in browser, in that machine or any machine in the network that can ping this machine from any machine, so in our case server 1, then you will be able to connect to and see the graphical user interface version of ESXi1, where you can configure virtual machine, storage, networking. You can configure a lot of stuff there. That is not DCUI, that is the main area where you configure the whole hypervisor. So I'm going to go to server 1 now, and I'm going to open a browser, and I'm going to write this address and see that if I can connect from server 1 remotely to the ESXi1 or not, right? So let us go here. Lettuce and salad. Okay. Here, server 1, DNS is there. I'm just gonna click this server and refresh it a couple of million times. Okay. Then I'm gonna close this DNS. I don't need that DNS to be open, so I'm gonna close it now. And well, what browser do we have? I have an IE here, Internet Explorer. But if I minimize this server manager, okay, the channel is already connected. Very good. Oh, we did not download the Chrome, right? Okay, so let's click this IE, right? Let's click that. And then click box. And I'm gonna put here in this HTTP, that's minus 10 marks. Oh, okay. Yeah, Mamelo says that this channel, I was not there and you went ahead of the teacher. So the new rule was discovered 1 hour ago that if you're ahead of the teacher, you lose a lot of marks. So just try to slow down your machines, and so you cannot go ahead of the teacher, right? Okay, guys. So there, https:// your first name ESXi1, right? So just be very, very careful with the spellings and press enter. You need to put that in the browser. Okay, I press enter here, and I'm expecting it to remotely connect from the server 1 to the hypervisor 1, because they are both in the same network, and we're supposed to make that communication. It takes time the first time to connect, to just discover that. Now the lab only goes smooth if you had followed all my steps of previous labs, then it goes smooth. And sometimes even then, for some there's an issue. So you can see already that there's a problem with this website. Security certificate page is here, which is okay. We did not purchase a security certificate for this hypervisor from internal CA, internal security, certificate authority, or external CA like GoDaddy.com or Digicert.com or VeriSign.com. So if you're on this page, this is okay. You can select the second option, continue to this website, this one, right? Then select the second option, continue to this website. Yay! Once you click that, so it takes you to the login page where you can put the username, password, and you should be remotely connected from server 1 to the hypervisor 1. So one day, Monday or Sunday, it's going to show you that page. And at Sham shows, let me click that, and DHCP is not enabled for Ethernet 0. Why is that coming? HTTPS calls. Well, we don't need DHCP actually. Close that. We gave a static IP, so we don't need that. But Cham, you need to put the correct spellings. Hopefully your correct spellings are there on DNS, and when you put those spellings as a name for the E6I1, are these on both places the correct spellings? If yes, then well, try to put https:// and the IP 192.168.200.3. If you connect by that, then try it by name as well. Cool. Okay. And you can basically try to ping as well. From here you can ping to the other one, and from or not. That will also tell. That will tell that you did not follow all the steps of my lab. That will tell that. So please then. Okay, it says yippee. Okay, that means you're connected. So guys, what username password should I put here? Navdeep says it's not working for me. Yeah. Anyone knows what's username password? So Navdeep, can you share your? Oh, there you go. Root. So I'll put root. Navdeep, can you share your screenshot on WhatsApp? Root, and the password is the class password that you put during the installation. Small abc, WC, ship 123 without ship 123. So that's the screen. That's the username, root, and the password is the password that you gave. So then I'm going to log in now, right? Login. Okay, so Nadeeb has shared the screenshot, and this is the screenshot here. So http://nav E6I. So Navdeep, first try to ping from here to your name of the E6I1, and second thing is try to put https:// the IP 192.168.200.3 in the browser and test if you can connect that way.
Yeah, I tried with HTTPS as well.
And well, did you try to connect from IP?
Why? Because I am basically on the class, so could you call me on my local time after 10 p.m.?
Okay, sure. I will call you after 10. Sure, don't worry.
Sorry.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Navdeep, you were saying?
Yeah, I'm also trying to ping it.
Okay. So it could be that if you can't ping also, then yes, it's really going down to basics.
Yeah, destination is not reachable, unreachable.
So Navdeep, check the VMnet of A6I1 and A6I2. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. So if you can right click on server 1 like this and go to settings, and then VMnet 15 should be there in the network adapter of server 1, and it should be the VMnet 15 for this one as well. That's the first thing you need to check. Second thing, the IP was given correctly. Maybe it is 190 instead of 2, 198.162. So check the IP if IPs are correct. So these are just basics of communication. that if you're not able to ping, that machine is not there right now. So check VMnet and the IPs of both machines.
Okay.
And,
Okay.
And at Sham, you need to check the communication between the machines. If you cannot access
Ping is okay. My ping is okay from server 1 to XI server 1. So I ping from 192.168.200.3. This is reachable, but I don't know why.
What is the IP of your DCUI? So can you share a picture on WhatsApp of the DCUI of E6I1?
My IP
login page
192.168.200.3
is there. Then cross-check your VMnet on both. And if the basic communication is not there, obviously the VMnet may not be there connected. So check that. Otherwise, guys, then at 10 o'clock, I can check your machines one by one, and then wait for the video to finish the rest of the lab. Okay. But if the IP is correct and it's pinging, but still not letting you connect, then there's some misconfiguration. Looks like that in your hypervisor. So guys, again, I'm saying that it's not compulsory to finish the lab with me. I'll give you enough time. You have 1 minute to finish that, right? Yeah.
During power on, could I change the VMnet because I make a mistake. I just select VM5 in place of VM15.
Okay.
So for that I need to power on first, or I just with power on I can change,
Yes,
or
you
I
can
first
change
shut down, then I need to change.
No, you can change anytime you want. So change now while it is powered on is okay.
Thank you.
Welcome, and good troubleshooting. Okay. And okay, our repeat is HTTPS to Navdeep. Okay. So yeah, guys, it's the basic communication between the two machines. And yes, if the VMnet settings by mistake is wrong, obviously it's never gonna let you connect. So please try to troubleshoot, and please stay as vigilant, because if you're configuring $1 million network of your customers or of your company, then we have to check each and every small configuration to be correct. Otherwise, their company's network will be down. So your network is consider it as your company's network, and you're the administrator getting 35 per hour job right now. That is $4,000 per month, right? So you're getting that, so you have to be extra careful at every small step, right? So it's a good exercise to do that, and please repeat all the labs with extra machines created in your laptop separate. Okay, so when we put username password, so you can see that there's that help us improve VMware host client. So this is customer experience improvement program. We don't want to improve this software, so uncheck that. I'm just kidding. Yeah, we want to improve that, but I'll still uncheck that. So press OK. So once you go inside, this is how the hypervisor really looks like. And in this, what we see is that there is a virtual machine area section, there's a storage section, and there's a networking section. So each hypervisor, suppose you have in one company thousands of hypervisors there, or hundreds of hypervisors, and on top of every hypervisor you have like machine. Suppose there's a big company, so hypervisor 1, normally hypervisor is installed on a physical server. So suppose this is a HP, Dell, or IBM physical server. On top of this, you installed a hypervisor here. And on top of that, obviously, what the purpose of hypervisor is create virtual machine 1, virtual machine 2, virtual machine 3, virtual machine 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Some hypervisors can take 15 machines, some can take 20 machines, right? Okay, very good, Navdeep. So, and then there are more hypervisors here, and each hypervisor has more virtual machines on top. And each virtual machine may have some application, obviously. So 200 users connected to this virtual machine, 500 users connected to this virtual machine, maybe this is a file server, 1000 users connected to this virtual machine, maybe this is a web server, and then 200 here, 2000 here, 600 here, so it could be different numbers, right? So this means that every hypervisor is taking huge traffic, because one virtual machine is attracting hundreds of users, second virtual machine is attracting hundreds of users. So suppose if the hypervisor has 20 virtual machines, 15 virtual machines, so maybe one hypervisor can take 4,000 end users, right, or 5,000 end users, right, according to whatever hardware, whatever RAM you gave there. Maybe you gave here 1 terabyte RAM, that is thousands of dollars, that's a lot of RAM. So you can load here lots of virtual machines then, right, and lots of CPU as well, maybe 64 core CPU, that's huge. Maybe a hard disk is a lot, terabytes of hard disk, right? So in that case you will have 20 virtual machines, 30 virtual machines here, and accordingly, if each virtual machine has hundreds of users, so 20 virtual machines will have thousands. Overall, there will be thousands of users connected to one hypervisor. We're connected to one such hypervisor here that in data centers, in production environments, are they're holding very critical applications that to which thousands of users will be connecting, right? So you understand the idea that how critical is a hypervisor. That's why we need to know the inside of one hypervisor. So if there were 20 hypervisors, you would know how to configure them as well. Obviously, if you can know inside out of one hypervisor, you would all other hypervisors will be exactly the same way managed and configured. So that's why we're here to check that how to connect to a hypervisor first of all. Second thing, what is inside a hypervisor? What is the basic architecture of a hypervisor? So that's why we're inside here as well. So let me just take a screenshot of that as we discussed it. So inside of a hypervisor, and I'll go for pasting that. This is my screenshot, not your screenshot. Hypervisor, right? And I'll just go back here. So once we're inside the hypervisor, so what we should go for, first of all, you can see that there's a host written there, and under the host is manage. So if you click the manage button here, so that manage button has system, then there's a hardware tab, then there's a licensing tab, there's a packages tab, services tab, security and users tab, right? So advanced settings here in the system just shows that whatever deep configurations you want to give to very critical areas of a hypervisor, you can go for that. The name advanced settings says it all, that you need to be very knowledgeable about the VMware environment to go ahead and change some of the basic configurations of a hypervisor. It goes down and down. I'll make this screen bigger. See, there's a full screen here for the VMware workstation. I'm just gonna click that full screen, so it makes all the screens even bigger, except for this tool here that still didn't go bigger. Refresh, and refreshing. So the main thing to know here for advanced settings is that it's going to change some of the basic or default configurations of this hypervisor, and that's why normally we don't touch it at all. This is just if you want to make those settings change for some complicated scenarios. So CPU ID here, that is about CPU ID mask, and this is for vMotion normally that is used. We haven't learned about vMotion yet, so that's why we won't be able to know this one as well. But if I keep going down, so there's a lot of other advanced settings that for which we need to go through the whole course to come back here and check it out and understand what they are talking about. So the next thing is auto start here. And in the auto start, it says enabled, no start delay 120 seconds, stop delay 120 seconds. So basically that means this is a hypervisor obviously. So you have a hypervisor here, and then you have virtual machine 1, virtual machine 2, virtual machine 3 on top of that, right? So if you want, then on the hypervisor you can tell that suppose the virtual machines are restarted. So when they're restarted, you can just put a delay here, that start delay or start. When you're shutting down the machines, delay keep a delay of 120 seconds. When you're starting a machine, put a delay of 120 seconds. So this is just to delay the starting of the virtual machine, or stopping of the virtual machine, in case suppose all virtual machines are starting at the same time and they are all requiring a lot of RAM. So when every machine starts at the same time, what happens is that a lot of RAM is required right away. So sometimes that much RAM is not available. So some of the machines do not get started and give you errors. So that's why instead of, if you had to restart the machines, then don't start every machine at the same time. Start one by one, from the most critical to the less critical. So that's the configuration here that helps you do this. And then there is a swap file. That swap file, yeah.
Sorry, Amir, I have one question.
Yeah.
So why we accessing all these things remotely? Like we cannot see the settings in ESXi?
No, we can do that. This kind of task you can do in ESXi by command prompt, or you can do it this way. So you have to remotely connect to a hypervisor to.
So every time we need to connect with server, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And the vCenter, that big application around which this whole course revolves, and the certification that I was asking to give is the certification for that vCenter. So vCenter is a central application that is going to control all the hypervisors. So yes, this means that the hypervisors need to be controlled remotely. That's the first thing. Okay, so there's that swap option there. Maybe you know about page file. Anyone ever heard of page file in Windows? Page file in Windows. And what's the purpose of a page file? Ever heard of that before? No one knows a page file? PAGE? So Memelo says temporary memory. Exactly. Is that correct, everyone? Do you agree with that or disagree with that? Temporary memory? What does that mean, actually? Yes, temporary memory, but what exactly is happening? Anyone knows?
Yeah, to use hard disk as a RAM. If RAM is low, we can create a page file. It's directly proportional to RAM size by default, but we can change it.
Exactly. I wish the explanation was longer, so I could have had that last sip of the tea as well. But that's pretty good. I had to just, take that sip faster. Okay, just kidding. So swap file is like a page file. What it does is that if the virtual machine needs, so it has a RAM of its own, and some of the software, all the application that is loaded is using that RAM, and sometimes the RAM fills up. So in that case, some of the hard disk HDD, the HDD that is connected to this virtual machine, some portion of that HDD is used as RAM as well, or VRAM. So that is called page file, PAGE, page file in Windows, and that is called swap file in Linux, right? So if you want to make some swap file changes, normally we don't touch that too unless you're an advanced VMware administrator or Linux administrator. Otherwise, we keep it as is, and it actually automatically decides that which virtual machine needs how much of the swap file according to the pressure on the RAM. Yeah, so we understand the purpose of what it does, and then we don't need to change anything here. So we're going to go for time and date. And then there is NTP here, or Network Time Protocol. So do you want to correct this hypervisor's time with some external device that has the correct time? So do you want this hypervisor to synchronize its time and correct it with some NTP or Network Time Protocol device? Either it's a router in the network, or a gateway device in the network, or some outside network time protocol device on the internet with which you want to synchronize this device to correct its time. So then you can put those settings here. We don't need to put any settings here, but we understand the purpose of what it is. Then we go for hardware, and it has some of the drivers already added there that what kind of hardware excuse me, can be detected, but otherwise whatever new hardware is added there, that comes appears here as well, as long as that hardware is in the hardware compatibility list of VMware, right? So that is if you install this on a an incompatible hardware that VMware did not test that and is not in the hardware compatibility list on the VMware site. So if you put it there, so hardware will not detect here. Otherwise, if you put it on Dell servers or HP servers, IBM servers, majority of them, pretty much all of them are mainstream, so they would appear here if it is installed on them. Power management is that you want to, okay, should we correct the time? Oh, time is wrong. Normally we're gonna connect it to October 6th and it's 12:50. So yeah, time is wrong, but we're gonna connect it to what? We're gonna connect it to the vCenter. So it's going to synchronize its time from the vCenter. So our vCenter time should be correct. So yeah, we can do it at that time. In fact, we're gonna double check it because it's gonna autocorrect it. So that's okay. But that's a good observation, Sam. So hardware, there's a power management here, and in power management, normally you can just fix that. Hey, at after half an hour of idle time, go to sleep or go to hibernation. That is a power management that you already seen in the laptops as well. That if you're not using it for a longer time, the monitor screen just turns off, and then after 1 hour it just hibernates or freezes everything and suspends the machine automatically. So you can just put some power management changes there to save some hydro bills that the company gets because the machines are started 24/7 365. Okay, so those power management can be there, but we're going to check that power management when we have a central application called vCenter. And if you go ahead with the rest of the configuration, so there's licensing, and in the licensing you can see that I think everyone's seeing that it is for 60 days. It's on December 4 it's gonna be expiring, so obviously before that we need to finish the labs or be near to our labs. So but all the features, advanced features, are doable on these machines, which is good. And at the end of it you can just purchase a license if you have some rich uncle like Bill Gates. So otherwise just let it expire. Okay, so then there is packages, and in the packages you can see that there are driver packages or driver software that you can install, NVIDIA ParaDriver, and then for SATA IDE drives. So for any kind of hardware, if there's a package needed or software needed, then you can deploy. And there are some knowledge base as well, so patching can be done. Patching means whatever updates are available for VMware, you can just install those from the install update here as well. But we're going to do that obviously from the vCenter, the central application. Pretty much we're going to do every task from vCenter. That's what you need to know for getting a good job and to pass the exam as well. Services, and those are very critical services. Remember that we were talking about DCUI. So obviously it better be running. Suppose you stop this service there, then you cannot connect from this interface of a server where we went to configure all this basic configurations. So we cannot connect to this if we stop this DCUI service, right? So this means that how critical it is, we know now. And then the next is load-based teaming, daemon, right? So there's it's running, and that is load-based. Just means that if you enable redundancy, high availability, then this service will work. But right now it's not. And then there are many other services: Active Directory, Network Time Protocol, daemon, and Smart Card, and other security services as well, E6i shell. So many services are stopped, which is good for security as well, and some services are started because they may be needed at any given time. Some are being used right now, some are, could be used. So, alright guys, this is services, and obviously we can start and stop them, but we're not going to touch them, but we know that services exist here in this tab. And then we go for security and users. So acceptance level partner, this just means that yes, it can be connected to a vCenter, it can be connected to Active Directory, so it is accepting partnerships, that means. Second thing is authentication. So you can actually join domain a hypervisor to Active Directory, but it's not like you join a Windows server to Active Directory, or Windows client, Windows 10, Windows 7, Windows 8 to Active Directory. So what is the purpose of connecting a hypervisor to Active Directory? So suppose you have created Active Directory users there. User John is created there in Active Directory, right? That is Microsoft. So if you connect this hypervisor to the Active Directory, so user John, which is a username in Active Directory, can log in from the hypervisor here, right? So that is the purpose of connecting this. Otherwise, it's saying there's authentication. So yes, you can join just to get the usernames of Microsoft or Active Directory, be able to log in to VMware as well. So this is where now we're going to do that. Does that help in SSO? Deepshika says, oh yes, it helps a lot. This is we're going to do that with the vCenter. So the main thing here is, yes, that Microsoft user who can connect to their file servers, Microsoft file servers, web servers, or SQL server, database servers, right, can also connect to vCenter from that same username, and then can connect to the hypervisors separately as well, or through vCenter. So in that case, yes, it already has, it is going to achieve the single sign-on, because with one credentials, that user can access all the Microsoft applications as well as all the VMware applications. So that's a perfect single sign-on achieved. So yes, it is exactly for SSO. Okay, and if we go ahead, then there is certificates. So certificates are used for security, and that is if you have self-signed certificate. Oh, okay, wrong tool. So if you have self-signed certificate, so that's definitely not secured. Self-signed just means that the certificate is there to tell others, yes, you can trust this device. This is a legit device. This is not a hacker's device. So security certificate tells that, right? Self-signed says that that same device to which you're about to connect, that device says, hey, trust me, I have my own certificate that I created myself, and that my certificate is telling you that to trust me. So this device itself created that security certificate and showing that certificate, yes, you can trust me. Why? Because the certificate I created tells, gives that, as a witness that, hey, yeah, you can trust it. So self-signed is never good. You have to go for either internal CA, certificate authority, like ADCS, Active Directory Certificate Services there, or you need to go to external CA, like verisign.com or dgcert.com, dgcert. So these guys, you purchase certificates from there, which are well known by everyone, and those security certificates, when you give to this hypervisor, now then outside companies who are doing business with you, they will trust you because they know that DigiCert guys are saying it's their certificate they're using. This means that these guys are okay. This hypervisor is trustable. It's not a hacker's hypervisor. It's a legit one because the certificate is coming from a well-known CA or certificate authority. So self-signed certificate is always insecure or you just don't know, then you have to know that are you inside an environment of a company, then it's okay. Otherwise, when you're connecting from outside, then better somebody else's certificate, well-known CA's certificate should be there. So if we check this out, obviously it's a self-trained certificate, but you can import new certificate. You can go to external CA and purchase a certificate for what? From $200 up to $2,000. You can purchase any type of security certificate there with any type of features, security features there. So yeah, it's showing that there's a self-trained certificate, and well, you can import a new certificate to make it more secure. And then there is users. You can see that root user that we just used to remotely log in from is there, and it has all the rights, administrator rights, right? So the root user has administrator right, but we can create local VMware users as well here if you want. If you go to roles, so these are the roles that you can give to any user that you create in the previous screen. And administrator, anonymous, no access, no cryptography, administrator, read-only, view. So locally in one hypervisor, you have these kind of roles, and they do explain that what kind of privileges that user will have if you attach that user to any of these roles. So the explanation is out there already. We're not going to create anything here because again and again I'm going to say, okay, wait for vCenter to be installed and everything is perfectly configurable from vCenter. So vCenter will control hundreds of hypervisors. We're just looking at one hypervisor here. Then there is a lockdown mode here, and that's a very good security configuration, which we will discuss again when we are installing after vCenter. When we join the hypervisor to the vCenter, at that time this option will come again, lockdown mode. What it means is that you can connect to the hypervisor from vCenter, right? When it is installed later, we will do that. You can also connect from hypervisor from a browser. We just did that. We are right now connected to a hypervisor from a browser, or you can connect to a hypervisor from DCUI, Direct Console User Interface. So when the lockdown mode is on, you cannot connect from a browser, but you can connect from, if the vCenter is there, you can connect from a vCenter, or you can connect from a DCUI, but not from the browser for security purposes. Enabling right now would be a very bad idea. Obviously, when you're connecting from connected from vCenter, only then it is a good idea to enable. So when we do connect this hypervisor to a vCenter, so at that time it's going to ask that, and yes, we will enable at that time. So right now, but what it does, we know now, but we are not going to enable it now. Right? So if we go ahead, so this is the manage part, then there's a monitor part here as well. So if you go to the left side, you can see monitor, right? And there's that performance in the monitor, and hardware and events and tasks and logs and notifications. Obviously, the whole thing is monitoring, about monitoring. So CPU performance you want to know, or if you drop down this, memory performance you want to know of this hypervisor, and whatever virtual machines are running on top of this hypervisor, and networking of this, disk of this. So everything, these are the four most critical components there of a hypervisor: CPU, memory, network, disk. So it tells you live or real-time performance of any of this. If I switch to memory, so whatever memory is being used, and if I switch to network, whatever bandwidth is being used and network is being used. So it gives you real-time performance of that. Now this is obviously very important to know to stay on top of things. Otherwise, if you miss something, that the machine is about to shut down because the memory is about to run out, so obviously then your reputation is online then. Hardware, if you go to hardware, so it is just saying it is not able to right now detect my hardware because it's living, this virtual machine, this hypervisor is inside a training software called VMware Workstation, right? So it cannot directly detect our hardware. In production environments, in data centers, you install a hypervisor directly on a bare metal machine on a physical server, right? So then a hypervisor can detect the underlying physical hardware right away. So then if it detects that, it gives that information. Oh, I can detect the CPU, and it says here the sensor, enable sensor data. So it tries to give you real-time performance of different aspects of your physical CPU and cores, how they're performing right now. CPU, RAM, whatever hardware is there, right? So it can detect that and then give you real-time performance of that. And storage, that's the same thing. It cannot detect in our case, but when storage is there, it's going to be detected and real-time performance will be given here. If you go to events, there are no, well, there are some events there, and whatever time we logged in, and the events are being checked here. And then tasks. So no tasks till now. We haven't done much here. Log files. So these are some of the paths of the log files here, and they tell you that about what the log files are there. And then there are notifications as well. So whatever notifications or warnings are there should be uploaded here if we do something. Okay, so manage and monitor is there, but then there's virtual machine here, right? So let's quickly create a virtual machine to check some of the features there, right? So let's go ahead and create a virtual machine. And then we're going to talk about storage, we're going to talk about networking as well. So in the virtual machine area, let's click create. You know what? If we start, no, that's okay. So create a new virtual machine here is the first option here. Then there is another thing here called deploy a virtual machine from an OVF or OVA. So open virtualization format or open virtualization appliance. So OVA, OVF are used for import of a virtual machine from import of a virtual machine or export of a virtual machine, right? Export of a virtual machine. So what happens is that if you want to export a virtual machine, suppose you have a virtual machine here, and that virtual machine actually has OS and a very critical application. Suppose it's a database application, SQL Server here. You've configured it very carefully, right? So in that case, you're in Toronto branch, suppose, and the administrator in New York branch says, hey, I want that virtual machine that you just created very carefully. Can you give me a copy of that machine as well? So that virtual machine you can shut down and then export it in either OVF format or OVA format. And once you export it, it's like just files, some files there, right? But it's SQL and OS, so maybe it's a big file, one big file. So you can just put it on USB, you can upload it on Google Drive or OneDrive, and then share it with the other guy, suppose the administrator in New York. So he or she can just download that file and then attach this or put that file and in USB and attach it to the server there on their side, and then import the file again. So export and import, you use these extensions there, or the virtual machine exported uses it is in that extension, OVA or OVF. So that's just for the extension of import export. We use this OVA OVF.
Amir, I'm not getting these options like deploy a virtual machine and register. I'm just getting item label.
Okay. Item label? How? If I cancel this, so are you on
Parentheses.
virtual machine first of all? Hello. Okay. And then create.
Yes. Shall I cancel this and start again? Yeah, it's there. And then I clicked on create register VM.
No, you don't.
Yeah, now I got it. Yeah. Now I.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, guys. So here, create a new virtual machine is there. Then there is that other option, import and export. We understand that. And register an existing virtual machine. This option guides you through registering a virtual machine that already exists on a data store. So what is a data store? This is your underlying storage created by VMware. We're going to talk about that as well. But registering a machine is that if it was never run before in a hypervisor, it was just laying on a data store, which is just the storage of VMware, then you can register it with hypervisor, or first time introduced to this hypervisor. So we're gonna stick to our create a new virtual machine. Okay, so there's a question there. OVA and OVF and OVA, what's the difference again? Yeah, the difference between the two is that OVF is open virtualization format. Open virtualization. Seriously, why did they come up with a long word? And I'm writing with mouse, seriously. So open virtualization format, yay! Oh man, I had to practice a lot to write with mouse. So open virtualization format, and then OVA, open virtualization. So open, and I'll just type vir this time, open virtualization appliance. The word you need to know is appliance. So the difference between the two is, and that's a very good question. So OVF has, when it exports the file, it exports it in three files. So there's a manifest file, and there is manifest file just has the information about what data is there, and then VMDK file, and the third is I think configuration file here, config. So what happens is that well, this is the three files, and OVA is just one .ova format, so it's totally closed. The whole virtual machine is zipped in one file. So when you export it in OVF, it's three files. This means that you are allowing whoever you're giving this machine to, you're allowing that person to attach this VMDK. What is VMDK? This is the extension of the virtual disk of your virtual machine. VMDK is the extension of the virtual disk of the virtual machine. So it's pretty much a virtual disk of a VMware virtual machine, right? So if it is exported in three files, this means that you're not done with the modification. You want somebody else to also easily modify the contents of this virtual machine when you export. OVA is that, hey, I'm done with my modification here. I don't want anyone to touch my virtual machine's virtual disk or configuration file or manifest file. So this is the final version. That's OVA. Or if you go for OVF, this is not the final version. Yes, I allow you to edit my machine and connect that virtual disk to your virtual machine and copy back and forth any software or data you want. So I'm not done yet, and I allow you to modify. That is OVF. I am done. You can't modify any further. My virtual machine that I'm exporting is OVA. So again, very good question, and this is answer. Hopefully we all understand that, and let us go ahead. Yay. I will paste it here on. Okay, so we have selected the create a new virtual machine, and if you selected that, then click next. Yay. So once you click next here, obviously you need to give a name to the virtual machine. So that is your first name, VM01. Your first name, VM01, right? Your first name, VM01. And compatibility. So if you go for compatibility, you can see that there is E6i 6.5 virtual machine. But if I drop down this, so you can see that there is E6i 4.x. Then the all previous versions of VMware, E6i 5.0, 5.1, 5.5, 6.0, and then 6.5, or VMware Workstation 12, which is the older version of VMware Workstation. So why there is a backward compatibility there? Because of the scenarios. Suppose you have one hypervisor here, and that hypervisor is actually 5.5 or 5.1, and then there is another hypervisor, actually that's yours, and that is H6.5. So what you're saying, what you're thinking is that, hey, since I have a 5.5 older hypervisor as well, on top of which there are some older virtual machines also already being hosted, but it could happen that if my current hypervisor, which is a newer one, and it has a lot of virtual machines of its own as well, suppose I had to migrate a virtual machine from this hypervisor to that older hypervisor. So if this is made with 6.5 configurations, then with this particular version 5.5, you cannot migrate, or vMotion, that is the terminology here is vMotion, which is just moving a machine from one physical hypervisor to another. So you cannot vMotion back a 6.5 machine to a 5.5 hypervisor. You can vMotion back to 6 version, but you cannot vMotion back to 5.5 version, right? So if you think that maybe if I had to migrate back, so why don't I just choose here 5.5, because I have one of that hypervisor already installed. Why don't I choose that now and then create a virtual machine that is compatible with this current hypervisor as well as the older hypervisor, so I can move or vMotion the virtual machine back and forth between the two hypervisors, right? So for backward compatibility, this is why you would want to go for older machines. But why they are considered older? Obviously, if 6.5 is chosen, it will have newer features. 5.5 will have older features. Suppose the virtual machine supported just 6 CPUs here, right? 6 processors you can attach, suppose. And this now has 12 CPUs attached, right? So there are many feature differences, obviously, between the older virtual machine in terms of capacity and security and scalability and redundancy and backup. So there are better features in newer version of virtual machines there. And Safe says, how about from 5 to 6? Yes, immediately next version, yes, they can migrate back and forth without us creating a backward compatible virtual machine. So also there's another reason, not only that you can vMotion, but maybe you want to enjoy all the features of 5.5. So in that case, you can create a 5.5. But the thing is that 6.5 machine cannot go back to 5.5. That's one thing. And second thing is that you would lose then the latest features if you create a backward compatibility machine. The latest features that are introduced with latest hypervisor. So hopefully that we get to understand that, okay, so that's the reason why we can choose the backward compatibility, but then it's all about what you get and what you lose. So it's your decision, your wise decision. Okay, so here we're gonna stick to 6.5, and then there's guest OS family. So obviously, is it Linux, Mac OS, or Windows? So for now, we're gonna go for Windows. Actually, we're just choosing Windows. As soon as you choose Windows, what happens? It loads the universal drivers of Windows machine. Okay, next one says vMotion 6.5 to 5.5 is not possible. So with backward compatibility it is possible, or with 5.5 updated to latest patches, it may be possible as well. So otherwise, normally one extra version jump back some of the versions. Suppose if you go for 6, so it's not possible to vMotion to 5.1, which is a jump from 5.5 and then 5.1. So when there is a one extra version, many of the features are not compatible. So that's why if you update the patches, then, or check the latest documentation, if it says it's possible, yes it is. Otherwise, in older patches it was not possible. Okay, guest OS family is Windows, and then guest OS version. So obviously you can just drop down here, and it could be anything there. So if I go for, so we're gonna just load the guest OS name, right? if you go up and down, up and down, up and down, up, down, down. Okay, so I'm going to go down here, down, 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 down. Do you see anywhere 2016? Under the 2012, I see 2016. Read it? So yes, okay. So there's a yes there. So go ahead and select after going down, 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 and down to 2016, 64-bit, right? I'm going to select 2016, 64-bit. All right. So if all right and then, so guys, we're selecting an operating system version as well. We're not going to install an operating system. Suppose we do install operating system inside a virtual machine as well. That's going to further slow down your our already slow environment, right? So I'm just going to click next here. So all the advanced features will work with or without an operating system. So suppose you install an operating system or you don't install an operating system, vMotion will work. Suppose you install or not install an operating system, HA, DRS, FT, all the advanced features, vSAN, everything will work fine. So it's up to you. You want to install an operating system, go ahead, install. But I don't think we can afford to have with 16 GB RAM. So there is that data store showing here. Oh, what's the data store? So data store is that when we had two virtual machines here, right? So actually 4 virtual machines we have right now. Currently we have 4 virtual machines. In production environment, these would be physical servers, right? So there's one local disk here. Local disk, local disk, local disk, local disk, right? And we can just say that this is these are all PHY disks or physical disks, right? PHY disk, physical disks. So what happens is that this physical disk has to be usable by VMware. It has to be made usable for VMware Hypervisor. So how can this be made usable for VMware Hypervisor? So right now we installed a hypervisor at the start of the class, right? We installed a hypervisor in a virtual machine. So hypervisor got installed. During the installation, it has to format this disk of the virtual machine, and it has to format that with VMFS. What is VMFS? VMware File System. VMFS is VMware File System. So then it has to partition this disk, and that partition is called data store. So it has to create a data store on top of that. Whatever the disk space is available, it has to create a data store. So it has to be formatted with the VMware file system. File system. Okay, and then on top of that, it has to partition it with data store. You can create 2 data stores in one disk, or you can create 3 data stores in one physical disk. But if we decide that, okay, we're going to have just one big partition, so when you partition, you can use that disk, right? So we want to make it usable for our virtual machine. So that's one thing, that physical disks need to be formatted with VMware file system. Second thing is they are partitioned with data store. So if the data store is, if they're partitioned with data store, so the VMware virtual machines can use that physical disk. Second thing you need to know is a virtual machine never sees a physical disk. A virtual machine always sees a data store. If you want a VMware virtual machine to use a physical disk, you have to create a data store on top of that. Suppose a data store is not created, virtual machine then cannot see that physical disk. So virtual machine only sees a disk if there's a data store on top of that, and virtual machines cannot see a physical disk if data store is not on top of that, except for, there's one exception only, that one feature that RDM feature, raw device management. So when that comes, we're going to talk about that too. But otherwise, virtual machine cannot see a direct physical disk, unformatted physical disk. It can only see a formatted physical disk where it was partitioned with a data store. So that's why we are seeing a data store here, right? So that's what I wanted to explain, what is a data store and why it is showing here. So you can see the full disk size that we gave, 200 GB, so 191 free, and it is formatted with VMS 5 version, VMware file system 5 version, right? So that is the explanation of this screen, right? Okay, I'll put that screenshot here. So when I take a very difficult quiz from you, very brutal quiz, midterm, right? So questions will come from all these explanations and diagrams. Okay, so data store 1, it sees there, because that's the only one that gets created when you install the hypervisor for the first time, right? It automatically gets created. All right, so if we go next, then it says customize settings. So now you can choose the virtual hardware, not the physical hardware, virtual hardware, right? So the virtual hardware is the CPU, how much CPU you want to give, how much memory you want to give, hard disk. This is all software or virtual CPU, virtual memory, virtual hard disk, and virtual DVD, virtual video card. Everything is just software based. Now you can see that first of all, CPU is one, that is okay, but you do see that arrow here as well, right? This arrow. So this means that there are so many other options there. Cores per socket. Suppose there is one physical socket processor there. So how many cores are there? Quad core, dual core. How many cores you want to select there to this? How many cores you want to give to this machine? CPU hot plug just means that, hey, you want to change the CPU from 1 CPUs to 2 CPUs while the virtual machine is powered on. So hot plug would be that you can just change the CPU configuration while it is powered on. You don't have to shut it down then. That's a good feature. And then reservation limit shares hardware virtualization. So we're going to talk about that with the resource pool topic, right? There's a topic called resource pool. In that, we're going to talk about reservations, limit, and shares. And then hardware virtualization. So you want to really use more direct hardware for better performance, and then performance counters and scheduling. Affinity rules is another upcoming topic after DRS, distributed resource scheduler. So we're gonna go deep down with all these topics here: CPU, MMU, virtualization. So right now, what we need to understand is that, okay, you can just collapse this option and go for memory as well. First of all, you can see that default memory is 4 GB. Really? Are you kidding me? Hey, don't you know that's the total memory we have for this hypervisor, right? So what we can give is 1024. So go ahead and change that memory to 1024. Okay, and then that's 1024 memory, right? And it's MB. Make sure it's MB, right? And then there's hard disk. So in the memory, you can also see that expansion slots there, expansion point here, reservation, limit, shares, memory, hot plug. So we understand the hot plug, that powered on machine can change the memory and CPU, but reservation, limit, and shares are coming again and again. So reservation is the minimum amount of memory that this machine must have. Minimum amount of memory that this machine must have is reservation. So you can actually give there, suppose it has a very critical application and you want always 32 GB memory to be always allotted to this machine, right? 32 GB memory. So in that case, you can give that. Then there is limit, which is the maximum amount of memory that you can give to this machine. So you can put a cap on that. Hey, you cannot get more than that. So reservation is always minimum. Limit is always maximum. Shares is always priority. If you give more shares to this machine than the other machine, so hypervisor will ask, hey virtual machine, you have more shares, so I'm supposed to ask you first that, hey, how much is your reservation, and I'm supposed to arrange that for you. So Saf says, will the limit exceed the RAM assigned above? So if you, so it's already on unlimited, right? So if we put a limit here, and what's the limit? Suppose you say that don't go more than 2084. Suppose you put a limit here. So obviously then it cannot cross that limit. But if you go for unlimited, yes, it will. If it needs more, it's going to ask from hypervisor and it's going to get more. Yeah, so then if it's set on unlimited, obviously whatever it needs, hypervisor has to provide that, unless other machines have done the reservation and limit configured already. So those machines will be provided first, and then whatever is left out of that will be provided to this machine. So it depends on which ones are critical. So if it's a VIP club, you will go for reservation and limit only for those machines, those which are critical and running the whole company. All right, so we talked about then reservation memory for memory, reservation and limit for memory. I'm gonna collapse that. Okay, so there's hard disk, and you can see it's 40 gigs. As I said, that we're not planning to install an operating system inside, but if you expand that, so you can see a lot of extra options there as well. Maximum size 191 of the physical disk, on top of which this virtual disk is being created. But you can see that disk provisioning, there is thin provisioned, there is thick provisioned, lazily zeroed, thick provisioned, eagerly zeroed, right? So what's with this lazily zeroed, and have you ever heard of a IT term that has the word lazy? Because then it will represent the whole IT industry. No. Well, in terms of doing other work, so maybe they are very good in, we are very good in IT, but hey, just clean up the kitchen. Yeah, okay. Or anything else, make a tea. Yeah, okay. So anyway, so in that work, yeah, we're known to be lazy. So, but what does that mean? So it means that thin provision, we may have talked about before as well, that it's the performance is slow, but it saves space, right? So saves space, it saves space, right? And then well, that's the main thing, it saves space, but it's slow, so unacceptable in production environments, especially for critical machines. Obviously you won't go for thin provisioned. Thick provision, lazily zeroed. So first of all, what is zero? Zero means formatting. It's not format like what format is that disk. No, it's formatting, or creating that format, or removing everything, or deleting everything, or formatting the disk. So lazily or slowly you want to format the disk while you take over the whole area. Thick provision means all 40 GB needs to be there, available for this machine. Thin provision means, oh, I don't need that all 40 GB. The software inside is Linux and it takes like 4 GB, so I'm going to only take that 4 GB on the physical disk. That is thin provision, right? It takes very less space. Whatever software installed, it takes that much space. Thick provisioned, it occupies the whole space whether it needs it or not, in terms of software, right? But do you want this to be formatted slowly, or do you want to be it to be formatted fast? So formatting slow, what's the benefit of that? Formatting slow is that the whole area is occupied here, but the software has been installed only on the first area here. Linux, maybe 4 GB, 5 GB was installed only here, so the data was spread only on this area, right? While the rest of the area is still occupied. While eagerly zeroed is that, hey, I'm going to occupy the whole 40 GB and I'm going to format the whole thing. You installed a 4 GB software only, but it will spread across, whenever you install an application, it spreads its data across the length of the disk, right? Width and length. So the thing is, do you want that whole disk to be used as well? If it is formatted fast, this means you have a lot of data there that's going to fill up. And if you format it slow, then at least if you've heard the term called IOPS, input output data per second. So IOPS is read and writes. you read from the disk, you write from the disk. Oh, that's read, actually this is write. So read and write will happen only on this area in lazily easy load. So not a lot of this will be, it will be a bit faster as well. But if you have less data, then you go for this. If you have a lot of data, maybe SQL Server, and you need a lot of space right away, you go for eagerly zeroed. Okay, format the whole thing. I'm spreading a lot of data quickly here. So this is just more advanced, and a bigger application, go for this. Smaller application or less users using application, you go for this, right? Isn't that redundant on SSD? Safe says. So the redundancy, we can say editing, yeah, okay. So redundancy is there, SSD is what? SSD, super slow drive, right? No, it's a solid state drive. So it just increases that reads and writes. So this is just really too fast with SSD. With SSD is this read is slow, write is slow. So IOPS are really slow with HDD. IOPS are really fast. So if you want to format the whole area, obviously the reads and writes will be available for throughout the area. It will be faster. But if you get a lesser area to be formatted, so reads and writes with SSD will make it even much more faster, this area. But this much hard disk will be used, and here it will be whole hard disk will be used. Normally there is not a very big difference between the two, but for bigger applications, administrators go for eagerly zeroed. Smaller applications, they go for, and it's not really compulsory that you go for smaller applications, but when you have smaller area with SSD, it's a bit faster. Data is not spread too far. Here the data is spread, so you need more IOPS there comparatively. So that's a very small difference. Yes, SSD makes a big benefit there, but a bit more faster here, a bit lesser faster here comparatively. So that's the only difference. Otherwise, we'll stick to lazily zeroed as well is also good. Yeah, hey, whenever I need more data, more space on the disk, just format it at that time, right? So overall, that's the purpose of the disks. I'll just copy that here as well. Okay guys, so other than that, there's shares, IOPS, virtual disk node, disk mode, sharing, so all that. We're gonna go for more detail in the storage topic. We're just trying to create a machine for now. SCSI controller here, SATA controller here. If your hardware supports all that, then this is good. But otherwise, normally this is LSI logic, LSI parallel, VMware, paravirtual. Some of the storage connectivity relies or depends on that, hey, what kind of functionality you need. Suppose you want to have a virtual machine, suppose you want to deploy an image over the network, and a virtual machine, empty virtual machine should catch that image over the network. Anyone knows that what is this network card called that has the capacity to catch an image over the network? An empty machine has a functionality. Anyone knows the name of that functionality in an empty machine? Well, what's the scenario I'm talking about? Suppose there's a virtual machine here, and that virtual machine is empty. And there is another machine, suppose it's a WDS, Windows Server, Windows Deployment Services. And there's an image of Windows 10. You want to deploy that image over the network. So the network card has a feature called PXE boot. NIC has a feature called PXE. PXE. PXE boot, pre-boot execution environment. That just means that network card connects an empty machine to the DHCP, and an empty machine connected over the network gets an image installed there, Windows 10. And you should learn that to my free course on LMS, that 70-40 course of MCSA 2016. You should go through the whole course to know about some Windows Server configurations. Okay, so here what I'm saying at some of these choices. So VMware paravirtual actually supports, if the virtual machine is connected to this type of storage as well. So it is helpful with this kind of scenario where you're deploying an image over the network and it will receive it and Windows 10 will be installed over the network. You don't have to go there and step by step do that. So some of the scenarios I'm talking about here for different types of selections here. Otherwise, stick to default selections. If you go down to network adapter here, so you can see status, adapter type, MAC address here as well. But what you can see in the network adapter is VM network. Oh, what is that? If you drop down, that's it. VM network. What is that? So what happens in networking side, right? So I have given a explanation of when you install a new hypervisor. Suppose this is, we just installed a new hypervisor here, right? Hypervisor 1 and hypervisor 2. So in new hypervisor, we saw that, okay, on the disk, there was a data store installed by default, right? So and on the disk, there's a data store installed and it was formatted with VMFS. But also, there's a switch gets installed as well. Suppose that's a switch here, right? So switch here and switch here. So that's a V switch, virtual switch. So what happens is, excuse me, that this every hypervisor, when it gets installed the first time, gets a virtual switch installed by default, one virtual switch. What is the purpose of a virtual switch? To connect virtual machines to each other and to the outside world. To connect virtual machines to each other and to the outside world. So virtual switch also gets installed automatically when you installed hypervisor. So in the virtual switch, there is a component called port group. Now those who have gone for networking or gone through, or are Cisco gurus would know that a port in a switch, so there's a physical switch here, suppose, right? Physical switch. Now that physical switch or P switch is, you would have ports here, right? Port 1, port 2, maybe it's a 8 port switch, maybe it's a 16 port switch or 32 port switch. So each port connects to one computer, second computer, third computer, each port one computer, right? So that's the physical switch. So the virtual switch has a similar thing called port group, and port group can accommodate 128 virtual machines, right? Virtual machines. So it can connect 128 virtual machines maximum, right? Per virtual switch. So port group just means that a group of virtual machines can connect to a port group. You can create port group 1 for sales department, port group 2 for marketing department, port group 3 for administration department, and sales department virtual machines can connect to port group called sales department port group. Marketing department virtual machines can connect to a port group called marketing department port group, and so on, right? So a virtual switch has this component called port group to which virtual machines connect and talk to each other over the network, right? So that default port group name is VM network. This is the default port group that gets created automatically. When the virtual switch gets created automatically after the installation of hypervisor, a port group gets created automatically within the virtual switch. The only job of a port group is to connect virtual machine, a VM. So see this, we are creating a virtual machine called this. So that virtual machine has to be connected to the virtual switch. The virtual machine is not directly connected to a virtual switch. It's connected to the port group of a virtual switch. And the main purpose of port group is to let virtual machines talk to each other. So second virtual machine when you create, you will connect it to the same port group. Third virtual machine you create, you will connect to the same port group. So they will be able to talk to each other, right? So just understand, yeah.
Just one question. Every virtual switch, maximum how many port group created? Only one or more than one?
We can create 128 port groups as well.
Okay, thank you.
So we understand that this is VM network port group to which we can maximum we can connect 128 virtual machines. So the virtual machines can talk to each other and to the outside world. So what we're seeing in network adapter is a VM network, which is actually a port group that is a critical component of a virtual switch that lets the virtual machines connect to each other and to the outside world, right? So hopefully we understand now. Oh, that's VM network is a port group. Okay, but we're gonna spend 4 hours just on virtual switch later when we have configured everything. So I'll just it's all about the why factor, which is, hey, why is this? But then the next critical factor is how factor, that how to do it, how to implement it after the why is good. Like, tell me why. Okay, so here, yeah, that was an old song. Forget. So yeah, here, network adapter 1, VM network, and then status is connected, power on, and then MAC address is normally given by a hypervisor to any virtual machine, and it normally, just like DHCP provides IP addresses, hypervisors also have a full range given for MAC addresses as well that is provided to each virtual machine. And then there is that CD, DVD, and video card. So, well, we are at the last minutes of our class. So, CD, DVD has two options here: host device and data store ISO. You can put the ISO of the Windows Server 2016 or Windows 10 or Linux or Mac OS. Any of the operating systems ISO can be placed on a data store on top of which the virtual machine is getting created. That data store represents the whole disk anyway, right? If the disk is 200 GB, the data store is also 200 GB, right? Or if you have a DVD ROM there or a USB stick, then you can connect that ISO, bootable ISO, to the host device. Host device means that physical server. Suppose it was an IBM server. So if you put a DVD of Windows Server 2016 here, then virtual machine can connect to that host device as well, or virtual machine can connect to its data store of this hypervisor, and if you put that ISO of Windows Server 2016 there, then it can grab it from there as well. Suppose, go ahead and click that data store ISO file. Go ahead and click that data store. So you will see that data store ISO file, there's a create directory option there, and there's that folder one created there. So this is a data store browser, right? So this data store is just the full disk where you can create as many folders here, and you can put ISO inside one folder. Suppose you create a directory called software, or suppose you create a directory here called ISO, and in there you put Windows 10 ISO, you put Linux ISO, Windows 2016 ISO, you can put that. So virtual machine can see our data store directly and can grab an ISO of an operating system from here directly as well. So that's the purpose of this data store showing here. I'm going to click cancel here, and it's giving me that, hey, you did not attach an ISO. So what we can do is, see this, go to host device here, just put it back to host device, right? Okay, so guys, we talked about some of the critical options here, and then there's video card option. There's also VM options on this other side. This is a tab, right? VM options. If you click that, so it also has some advanced options of remote console options, VMware tools, which is more critical. That VMware tools is always critical for every virtual machine, right? So you want them to be deployed automatically or not. So other than that, power management, you want this machine to be shut down, or wake on LAN options are there for power management. There is boot options here. That's very good. You want to log into BIOS at next startup, so you can select that too. The next time the virtual machine boots, force entry into the BIOS setup screen, just to change some boot orders there in the BIOS. Advanced options for swap file location and others. So, and then fiber channel NPIV. So that is if you're connected to SAN, storage area network, and then over the network shared drives or LANs are connected here. So you can configure that too. So that's a lot of options in a virtual machine, and it's always good to know that. So let's click next and create a virtual machine. Yay! Click next.
Amir, in the memory, we have to keep the limit like unlimited.
Yeah, so I put there 1024, 1024.
MB?
Oh yeah, it has to be MB. If you go GB, this will be 1 terabyte. So yeah, it has to be
Okay,
1024.
I'm not talking about the RAM. There is a one another option that is limit.
Yeah, so that's MB exactly for the memory.
Oh, actually, we have two options there in the drop down. One is 0 and another is unlimited. If you expand the memory.
But yeah, I didn't change any of those options.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, guys, so make sure it's 1024 and next. And then we click finish. Yay! Or yay. Then we click finish. Yay! Okay, I said that before. Okay, so let's click finish. And it's created. Okay, guys, so this is it. Let's take a screenshot of this virtual machine here. And that would be screenshot number 6 or 7. So that. Oh, okay. So screenshot 4 equals virtual machine created. Screenshot number 4 equals virtual machine created, and the screenshot of this screen, and the virtual machine created. So I just put that there. The sample screenshot is in the WhatsApp, and upload. So what we need to do is suspend all the machines, or yeah, I'm gonna right click here. See this? Right click, power, suspend guest, right, like this, and gather up all the screenshots in MS Word, upload it to the Blackboard where I'm about to create an upload link.
Amir, just the recent task, you have 2 virtual machines down? We have
no,
one.
That's one is the create VM, other is update option. So it's about the activity of one VM creation. So it's just one VM.
So the VMware is the one that's up, right?
So no, that's just the, some tasks are divided into 5 or 6 steps. So it's just showing 2 steps there. One is create steps, other is update step. Which is just, in other words, saying that we create one virtual machine.
Okay, but if I don't have the update option, it's okay.
Which is okay, yeah, no problem.
Okay.
Hopefully everyone has created that except for Gabriel.
I wanted to find out why are we suspending instead of powering off? What happens?
Yeah. No, power off is okay. Suspend is that if we want to exactly start from this screen and window, so we will also recall, oh yeah, what we were doing this and that. Otherwise, no, there's not much benefit of that. So yeah, go ahead and shut down if you want, and suspend takes actually more space as well, so shutting down is good. But in next class, when we install vCenter, then after that I will specifically recommend for every machine to suspend the guest server 2. We're going to install vCenter, so then yes, we must suspend, otherwise it's going to take forever to start the vCenter with our low RAM, right? So okay guys, suspend guest or shut down guest right now, anyone you want, it's okay. I'm not sure why, but I'm going for I'm sure why. So suspend guest, but if I want to recall, oh yeah, last time we were doing this, so then I would be able to know that. So E6i1 suspend, but after some time we have to restart as well, because suspend does not, it freezes the services, it does not refresh the services. So it's better to, after some time, shut down and start the servers as well. I've suspended the machines and closing this. Now Gabriel says that he was not able to create a machine and this error was coming, VM configuration was rejected, please see browser console. Wow, rejected, seriously? Invalid configuration. Okay.
Only EXSI server shutdown, or before EXSI shutdown, VM which we created now first shutdown that, then after EXSI server shutdown.
Yeah. So first server can be shut down first, which are infrastructure roles, and then normally that is for Windows machine also, but this is a VMware machine, so there is no order there. So anyone can shut down first and or second.
Okay, thank you.
So where is that? So Gabriel, you may have click some option that I did not click. So you can just upload that screenshot as the first one, and then when the video is uploaded, follow that video to recreate the machine before the next class. And let me create that. There is week 4 that I need to create. So it's week 405 available, and I need to log in.
Hi.
Yeah.
Do we suspend the authoring of the hypervisors?
Well, suspend is okay, because then we will know exactly where we were in last class.
Okay.
But if you shut down, that's also no big deal. Okay, here it's 05, and then OCT October, submit, and second thing is I still need to create that upload link there. Please upload week 4 is there. Don't go for that. I'll create assignment. Upload week 4. Control C. And okay, or so guys, go to Blackboard, go to week 4, refresh the page, and upload this. Okay, orange is when the YouTube link will be available. Orange, yeah, it will be available by tonight, hopefully, or by tomorrow morning. So I'll stop the video now.